I don't celebrate that. It was started by a traitor to black people, Ron Everett, aka the Maulana Ron Karenga, in 1966. The first meetings were at Lamert Park on Crenshaw in LA. And it turns out that the avowed purpose was so that black people could be encouraged to talk so he could provide more information to LAPD and the FBI. More people got killed because of that scoundrel and the folk that were pushing him at that time than you can be comfortable with. A lot of people I'm personally acquainted with died because of that clown. He went to the penitentiary for torturing several black women because he thought they were trying to poison him. He got out of the state penitentiary after doing 1 year, 1 day, and within 2 weeks, he was a tenured professor at the state university system. He killed off John Huggins and Bunchy Carter at UCLA and tried to terrorize the black women out there so he could get a black studies program that he ran that was a 4-year program in usology. He was a snitch, a sneak, and a lowdown, egotistical, maniacal, crazy man. And I challenged it and say it to its face, said it to their face back when. So I do not celebrate Kwanzaa because I do not celebrate anything where somebody was trying to snitch out the good things that black people were trying to do in their communities between 1965 and 1968 when that other scoundrel, Richard Tricky Dick, I am not a crook Nixon, got into the White House.
So Kwanzaa, it starts, I believe, December 26th after Christmas. Kwanzaa is a week-long celebration held in the United States that honors African heritage and African-American culture. Kwanzaa is observed from December 26th to January 1st and culminates in gift giving and a big feast. Dr. Karenga created 7 guiding principles.
He's a complete treasonous, sellout, bought off, weirdo asshole.
Now, I get that.
That's personal.
And right, it's personal but factual. However,
and like the first 100 million man, the first Million Man March on Washington, Minister Louis Farrakhan said, and a lot of people object to this, but in, let's say, the interest of reconciliation, perhaps we might allow Ron Karenga to speak to the group. Now, I know some people are very much against this, but we're going to let him speak in the spirit of reconciliation. A lot of people hate that MF for what he did in the black community out in LA and all the people he got killed and all of the people he sold out and all of the black movement that was crushed because his folk came in, infiltrated meetings, took shorthand notes, and got a lot of people prosecuted because the FBI thought what they said was inflammatory.
Now, so you're saying black people shouldn't celebrate it because he created it?
The other thing is come up with a real African holiday, and celebrating that part of the season is questionable anyway, but they might go dig a little bit deeper and find out something that clown didn't start up so he could get people to pay his idiot boot dancers who would do these line dances in rubber boots like they were supposed to be scrubbing the gutters in Pretoria, South Africa.
But what about the representation of Kwanzaa? You know, because it's 7 candles and they each mean something.
Yeah, I know.
Umoja for unity. Kangala.
I refuse to celebrate an enemy. I refuse to celebrate all of the black men and women that died or suffered at the hands of snitches like that. I refuse to sit there and celebrate anything that comes from a creature who is one of quite a few who did every damn thing they can because they were opportunistic pimps of the moment 50 plus years ago that has led us to where we are right now. And what we had was a beautiful black thing that was gathering momentum, got to the point where nobody could trust anybody because of what charlatans like that fool did.
True. So basically, it is important to understand how the root of something was created. Like, can you bypass him, don't acknowledge him, but celebrate the principles of Kwanzaa, which is something positive, unity, purpose,
You might be able to, but I can't.
right?
I hold that
Cooperative
grudge. And what I
economics,
say, fruit don't fall far from the tree. And it
collect.
fell from that collective poisonous tree. Now, there were some good people in the US organization, but one of the big problems was that there was a gang called the Businessmen in LA that went defunct after the LA uprising in 1965. A lot of those young men were in the penitentiary serving time, and when they got out, they got recruited to the US organization. There were also some fine people that got in there, some of whom I know to this day and I consider close and personal friends. But other than that, the organization was poisonous, and they were too damn young and insignificant in one sense at the time to know what they were getting into, other than it was a thing to do because everybody wanted to be, we called it, relevant. So, yeah. And watch out for that because it's happening right now. A whole lot of people that are talking smack about you need to do this, you need to believe that, you need to follow that, they're nothing but pimps and sellouts because they got things that compromise them and somebody's holding it over their heads. And they're saying, just like any other snitch does, don't come after me if I give you somebody else.
Yeah.
A warning.
So no Kwanzaa, just like no Juneteenth, no Kwanzaa.
Hell no.
Welcome back to Breakdown Friday. I'm Joseph Ward, Professor Carl Tone Jones, Patrick Irvin, and we are here breaking down Kwanzaa. I'm scrolling through social media like I always do, YouTube specifically. I come across this video from the Real Dana's channel. Y'all check her and Judeg Joe Bworn out. I'm gonna put a link for that channel in the bio, in the description. But come across this video and he's talking about Kwanzaa. You know, the question Dana asked Judeg Joe Bworn is, do you celebrate Kwanzaa? He says no, then he explains why he doesn't celebrate Kwanzaa. And in his explanation of celebrating Kwanzaa, it made me think about rumors that I've heard in the past about Ron Karenga being associated with the FBI. So I decided, hey man, well, the three of us should explore this. So here we are exploring this further. And in this exploration, I learned a lot of new things. Oh boy, a lot of stuff was not taught. A lot of stuff was not taught. I had the organization US had no idea it existed. Learned more about it, learned the connections to it, learned the connection with Black Panthers and how all of the things led to a lot of FBI raids of the Black Panthers over the years. So in my digging, I found a lot of convoluted information. Some information seems helpful. Some information don't seem helpful at all. But I figured the three of us can put all our information together and make sense of this and come up with the answer to, should we celebrate Kwanzaa? Is Kwanzaa something that is viable to us? Can we utilize the principles of Kwanzaa if, in fact, Ron Karenga is associated with the FBI and was used through the US organization to help bring down the Black Panther Party? So, Pat, we're gonna start with you today, man. So, what are your thoughts on what Judeg Joe Bworn was talking about, Kwanzaa, Ron Karenga, and the whole us not celebrating it?
I agree with him. Maybe not, not as fervently. No, I mean, look, I think, like I said, I was looking into it when it was first introduced to me, and there was just too many holes in it and too many things that didn't make sense for me to like, because I feel like there are two reasons that something should be celebrated, right? A cultural tradition based on something real and relevant to that culture, or historical significance based on a person that did something impactful. And so when I'm looking at Kwanzaa, well, first off, I'm looking at Ron, and I'm like, okay, well, that is not somebody we should be celebrating. And we have to understand that when you celebrate somebody's creation, you're in fact celebrating them. So, but then the other thing just became the disconnect between the original intended purpose, which was to replace Christmas, give Black people a reason to do something other than Christmas. And then it became something that Black people celebrated alongside Christmas. And now it's something Black people celebrate alongside Christmas and Hanukkah. So it's like, all right, so it kind of loses its significance as anything significant when you can mix it with everything, and all of those other things are still more significant. So there was a disconnect on a bunch of different levels for me about why this holiday, why this set of dates should be celebrated and all these other things. And then the other thing was just like the tenets I agree with. Like, it's hard to read the tenets and not like, you don't read the tenets and be like, man, fuck unity. You know what I'm saying? Like,
that don't make sense. Yeah.
Right. Like everybody agrees. Right. Like self-determination. Ew, that's for bitches. Like everybody agrees with the principles. But it's everything else around the principles. And then it's also like, what do the principles mean in relation to everything else? Like, how are they being taught? How are they being passed on? How are they being instructed? Is this a day by day thing? Is this a period thing? Is this a whole year round thing? Is this like, you got all these questions about it that everybody chooses to answer and express differently. And with that, I'll land my plane because you and Professor are more historians than I am.
Well, PC, you heard what Pat said. You heard what Judge Joe Bworn said. What do you say?
I mean, and I don't want to sound crazy because once upon a time I did celebrate Kwanzaa just based on the principles alone. Prior to knowing the full detail of Ron Karenga's history, and I'll be honest, I stepped away from a lot of things that don't seem to amount to anything more than pageantry for Black people. So I don't necessarily, so me moving away from it, from Kwanzaa and all the other different things that come with it, happened more so from that. But I will say this, and this is not the first time I've seen Judge Joe Bworn say that, that interview with the real Dana. I've seen it. I think I saw it when he first did it years ago. But, we've been really talking about integrity. Like, we really land we stand on business when we start talking about integrity. Right? So, and you think about, and Patrick said something that's very important. And when you look at the origin of something, right, you have to take into consideration the people that generated the place it was generated, because that's where the spirit is going to come from, the spirit of that particular thing. And you give it life. Now, if it's done so with such a corrupt character, a corrupt person with a corrupt, spiritual base, and I'm just saying that based on his actions, torturing people and coming snitch for the FBI, and and several sources have pointed to him being responsible to Black Panthers losing their lives, based on his cooperation with the FBI. Then you have to ask yourself, then how can you celebrate this when this man is not showing integrity? You know what I'm saying? Because if you are integral by any means, then you wouldn't have been accused of any of those things. You wouldn't have done those things. So then nothing really positive or community building can come out of that. I mean, his life's work was what destroyed the nation building aspect of the Panthers, in many cases.
Right.
So, and then there's some other things too, because like I said, character and integrity matters. We've talked about that before. Like, all three of us knows people in our past that have done something to one of us, and we looked at it and said, you know what? All right, now we have to ostracize you because you violated somebody that was a member of our brotherhood, and in that violation, then you violate us, and therefore we have to ostracize you from being connected. We can't even work with you. We can't even deal with any of your creations or ideas because it wasn't done in good faith. Well, then you look at this particular celebration, if you want to call it that. Like I said, I call it pageantry. Um, and then you have to move accordingly. I think integrity is what's missing in a lot of things we do. By the way, you look at um, the spiritual connection to the lighting of the candle, right? What because that's a ritual. When you start lighting candles, those are rituals, and especially when you do it in the name of something, it's a ritual. And people, especially those who study or live by the tenets of African spiritual culture, black candle is something we never. I'm not gonna say never, unless you're instructed by a priest. You don't touch black candles because black candles are aligned with witchcraft. Black candles are aligned with occultist type works, and and they're aligned with black magic. So we don't touch those because now you're entering and you're unleashing things that you don't know the power of, and so unless it's been instructed, we don't touch those things. Um, and and thirdly, man, and I got more, but you think of the language. Now the tenets I can deal with. The tenets I can deal with. I think you don't need to be a practitioner of the Kwanzaa holiday season to operate the tenets. They're honorable tenets. The things we should be doing anyway. Well, hell, you could say that about the Ten Commandments too. So, you know what I'm saying? um, or you could say it about the different principles of my eye. You know what I'm saying? That we can live by. There are other things that we can do, utilize to speak to being righteous and doing right by people and being honorable. So you don't. So it doesn't have to be this day. And Judge Joe Bworn, bro, he spoke on something he didn't talk about. Celebrating this time of the year, right? Black people, for people who understand like our cultural origins, January 1st is the new year for us. The new year is the first day of spring because that's when the world comes alive again. Like this week, we celebrate, and like we celebrate this.
It's in the dead of winter.
In the dead of the winter, when everything dies. You know what I'm saying? So, and so I'm gonna come back to the Swahili part, but I do want to speak on the Asian part because that agent infiltration piece is something that
Let's come back to that.
Okay.
I do want to get to that because I want to spend some quality time on that.
Okay. Well, then I'm gonna land my plane right there because we got a lot of show ahead of us.
Yeah, but no, I got some carved out for that. So yeah, because like I say, so I'm the greenhorn of the three of us because hey, up until starting to do research for this, I never thought negatively of the observance or celebration of Kwanzaa. Now, from my experience, Kwanzaa has always been half-heartedly celebrated by Black people. It's not something that a great number of Black people have celebrated, or even a number of people have taken serious. So I know Kwanzaa celebrations here in Tallahassee, I would attend with the May family, and so Miss May would have her annual Kwanzaa celebrations. I would come and I would give my Black history presentations and things like that. Never thought ill of Kwanzaa. Like I said, I've only heard rumors about Ron Karenga maybe being part of the FBI, but never had any hard information. Then I started preparing for this show. And I came across a lot of information, like I said in the intro, came across a lot of information that I did not know about that was connected with Ron Karenga, him being connected to the murders of Bunchy Carter and what's the other gentleman, the other Black Panther? It was Bunchy Carter and y'all know the name. Help me out.
That's good question. I'm not even gonna lie. See, I actually remember.
Oh, John Huggins. John Huggins. Okay. Yeah. So Bunchy Carter and John Huggins. They were learning that Bunchy Carter and John Huggins were killed by or unalived, unalived for YouTube. They were unalived by members of US, and US was the organization that Karenga was a part of. US stand for United Slaves, and US basically, from a lot of information I came across, that US was working with the FBI. And from some of the information that I saw, after the gentleman from US unalived Bunchy Carter and John Huggins, a lot of people believe that led to a lot of the FBI raids of the Black Panthers across the country and a lot more infiltration of the Black Panthers across the country by FBI agents. And so seeing all of that, because I've read several pieces of information, and I put the link to everything that I was reading in the description. And so read several pieces of information that link Ron Karenga to the unaliving of Bunchy Carter and John Huggins. Also, the information that I learned about Ron Karenga going to prison for the torturing of the women in the organization that PC alluded to. So according to the information, allegedly, or I'm gonna say allegedly to save us though, but he and his wife were charged with kidnapping and torturing women that were that were a part of the US organization who they believed to be snitches, and then it was turned out that, like Judeg Joe Bworn said, turned out that those women were not snitches. So they did a lot of bad things to a lot of people. But a lot of the information that I came across, like I said, I'm not saying any of this information is definitive, but we are going to explore this information, and we're going to toggle with scenarios that go along with this information. But this is the information that is presented, that is at hand. So this is what we're talking about. So with that being said, if all of that is true, you have to look at Ron Karenga with the side eye. You have to look at the US organization. You have to look at the impact that it had on the Panthers. You have to look at all of that stuff if the information is true. You know what I'm saying? You can't just overlook these things. Now, I did find some information. I came across one article, then I realized Ann Coulter was the author of the article. I was like, oh shit, Ann Coulter. But it led me to something that was called the Symbionese Liberation Army. Now, because this is some of the information that's kind of sticky. So the Symbionese Liberation Army was said to be a terrorist group by the FBI, a far left organization that was a very militant terrorist group. And according to Ann Coulter and some of the people who support what she's saying, the Symbionese Liberation Army influenced Karenga in the 7 principles that go along with Kwanzaa. But you know me, I got to do my research. And so looking further into the Symbionese Liberation Army, the Symbionese Liberation Army wasn't founded or didn't come about until 1973. And Kwanzaa came about in 1966. So that's some of the information that's conflicting. But once again, I look at the source, see Ann Coulter and them, like, ain't reading that. They throwing shots at CNN and MSNBC. And I'm like, this sounds like some fluff. But it was interesting to read, and it led to me being able to debunk the notion that the 7 principles of Kwanzaa was influenced by this far left hate group. But it doesn't dismiss Karenga's organization's involvement and the killing of Black Panthers and also the torturing of those women. And then, like, because you get going back to what PC talking about, principles. Do we stand on principles or not? So, putting it up in the air. Now we got to further explore Kwanzaa and everything, because we're all in agreement that the principles of Kwanzaa, we should be practicing these things every day. We know we don't practice the Kwanzaa principles because look at how we operate. Look at how we treat each other. But we do have to be able to look at it, and it's good for discussion to be able to look at Kwanzaa. Is this something viable that we should continue to celebrate moving forward? So,
go ahead, PC.
I mean, like I said, man, sometimes you have to, take a step back. And I understand. I'm not legitimizing it for the pathology of it. I understand when people invest in something and their investment they don't want their investment to be for nothing, or so many people have invested in the so-called season of Kwanzaa, but this is sort of like their calling card. I don't necessarily I think sometimes you need to put things to sleep. I feel the same way about Juneteenth, but for different reasons. You know what I'm saying? So I agree. So I'm sorry, the real Dana. Y'all just gonna have to find something else to do. Because I think that when you start moving and you start growing, this is part of growth. Recognizing things you don't no longer need, things they don't serve you, and then things that have a negative impact on you. You keep operating in this spirit, and then you wonder why the community is falling apart the way it is. We don't really even have a community. We use the word community as euphemism. Really, we're just a populace of people who live around each other who really can't stand each other.
Survival units.
At this point, we're in the unaliving fields. You know what I'm saying? Try to think of a creative way of saying that. And we don't listen, man. Like, nation building is not like is not square and center where it needs to be, because part of nation building is also getting rid of things and people, places, and things that no longer serve the nation. We have shown to be incapable of any of that. But the notion of saving or celebrating a program that we know now was generated, in the spirit of origin, that was generated a certain way, I think it doesn't serve us anymore. I don't think it really ever served us. And now that we know, it's like if you find out there's arsenic in your cookies, are you going to still eat the cookies and biscuits?
What kind of cookies are they?
Word. Valid question.
That's a valid question, because that's the question you ask every day.
Yep.
But I'm playing. But as I think about it, that's a valid question, because that affects whether we actually eat the cookies or not. And by that,
more than whether or not there's arsenic in it. That question is more important than for us, anyways. But that speaks to what PC is always talking about with regards to the arrested development of us as a cultural group. Like we're not in a place where we can look at something and say, what are the ingredients? Oh, those are all bad. There's no way anything good can come from something with an all bad ingredient list. You can't make something beneficial from me out of nothing but poisons and toxins. So, but I think, like, I go into it, I don't think it ever served us. I agree with PC when he says that, and I agree with Judeg Joe when he said it too. I think we're struggling with the charismatic make us feel good versus the real. Because I think about like the difference between what was it? Akeem Jamal. I think that was his name. Yeah. Akeem Jamal and Ron Karenga, when they first got together to create the US organization, and you correct me if I'm wrong, there was a philosophical split that happened. Hakeem Jamal wanted to celebrate and recognize and focus Black people on Black American heritage and culture. His ideas were centered around Malcolm X, which is why he left to create the Malcolm X Foundation. Ron Karenga was centered around Africa, and kind of the Pan-African. So it's like and it's not to disrespect the disconnect us from Africa, but one person wanted us to focus on who we are now and things and ways that we can progress and move forward currently. And another person wanted us to focus on who we were at the time. Maybe, possibly, could be, maybe, depending on how you turn your head and squint and look at a map, right? So, but which one of those stories feels good? When in the 1960s, who we are now is getting fucked up. Who we were back then was fucking people up. One is much more appealing than the other. And so I think that is going to be the problem that even today we continue to have this philosophical divide in the Black nationalists, because I think that's really the divide between Pan-Africanism and Black nationalism, which I honestly believe that Black nationalism is the first step necessary towards Pan-Africanism. I really do believe that. But I think that the way it's positioned philosophically nowadays is that Black nationalists believe that Black people in some way have to cultivate some Black identity for ourselves as a national group of people. And a lot of the Pan-Africanists believe that Black people have to connect more with Africa and forego their national identity. And obviously at the higher levels, people that really think about and understand this, they understand that like there's a way to reconcile the two. You can appreciate your past and still recognize who you are. But a lot of these conversations are had on a very low level from people that haven't really thought about it, haven't done the research. They don't have the information. And I'm going to go ahead and say it. I don't think half of them have the intellectual capacity or capability to have this conversation, but they're standing in front of people having these conversations. And so that's, I think Ron Karenga is one of those people, though, if I'm being honest. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
What we gonna say?
But not listening to what both of you are saying and just thinking overall about how Kwanzaa is already celebrated or the lack thereof. Because like you said, Kwanzaa is something that's in conjunction with Christmas or in conjunction with the holidays if Black people choose to celebrate. In the celebration of Kwanzaa, nothing really comes out of it but feeling good for the most part. I'm not saying that's absolute. I'm not saying every single group of people who get together that celebrate Kwanzaa, nothing comes out of it. But from what
I'm saying it. Now what? What now?
You saying it. But from what I have observed, it's just celebration and observance. It's not something that's that even leads to building, or building is a part of it. And if we looking at the principles of Kwanzaa, that should lead to some kind of actual real building, some actualization of something real for us, and nothing.
No, it shouldn't. Why should it, Joe?
Well, I mean, of course it wouldn't, because we stuck in the stage of just trying to feel good and be entertained. But also now, if you couple in where Kwanzaa comes from, it makes sense though. If we factoring in the events that Ron Karenga and us were involved in that negatively impacted the Black Panthers, then it will make sense that nothing would come out of Kwanzaa. That's what I'm getting to.
Well, we saw it in the clip when the sister Dana, and I joked about it earlier, but now I'm gonna be serious about it. How she responded, well, we can't have Kwanzaa, we can't have Juneteenth. It was like a child pouting, because that's what it's seen as. It's seen as we want to have fun too. It's like when I used to see people, we used to see people walking around, say, you got July 4th, we have our Juneteenth. or people walk around with shirts like "You got Jesus, we have our ancestors." It's like it's a tit for tat thing that children do. And Pat alluded to it earlier. Yes, I utilize the term all the time, arrested development, because that's how Black people operate. And so, because we operate from a place of arrested development, the higher level thing, and here's the thing too. We have a problem. We have a problem with respecting intellectual Black conversations held by people who are actually qualified to have the conversation. Because we feel as though because we all have access to a mic, we all have access to a phone, we all have access to a stage, a platform on social media, nigga, what you got to say ain't no better than what I got to say. And if I can just say it loud enough, and if I can say it, if I can be charismatic enough, then eventually people won't listen to you, they'll listen to me. And so it's a very disrespectful way of looking at, especially people who are not just talking rhetoric, people who are solution oriented, people who are nation builders, who are actually having, because it's the closest thing we have to a think tank. And it's disrespected because most Black people don't think, they think we see each other through the lens of a white supremacist. In other words, we see each other like apes and monkeys and baboons who don't have the ability to have common sense to create a society or reality for themselves. And so, because so many people want to get their foot in and like double dutch, everybody want to jump and get in the rope, jump in when the rope starts turning, then we muddy the field, we muddy the conversation, we muddy the ability to identify how sophisticated this situation is, and then we really come out of it as people who are based in their feelings. Well, I have an opinion on something. Well, do you have any facts to back up your opinion? No, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Because it sounds good. Actually, you know what? I like how it looks up here on the stage, and I like the fact that she's smiling at me, and I like the fact that he's giving me high fives.
Pageantry.
But, right. This doesn't make any sense. This has turned into, because, listen, Juneteenth is so watered down. Here in Philly, it was a group of white folk that were talking about how much they love Juneteenth and how Juneteenth could be Philadelphia's Mardi Gras.
Man, look. Let's be real. Let's be real. The masses of Black folk didn't even mess with or think about Juneteenth until the Democrats got a hold of it. You know what I'm saying? Until it became right before it became a national holiday, like a couple years before that. That's when the masses of Black people really start gravitating and celebrating Juneteenth.
Like, they let a white woman create a flag that mocked the flag of the Haitian Revolution.
But also like I say, because you was alluding to an area earlier with Juneteenth and the celebration of it. So I'm gonna say, I said it before, I say it again. Here in Tallahassee, Florida, they just started celebrating Juneteenth, maybe 5-6 years ago. Just started celebrating Juneteenth. When I was growing up, and when Pat was growing up, because we both from Tallahassee, Pat, on May 20th, what did we celebrate?
May Day.
Emancipation Day. May 20th. The same thing that happened in Texas on June 19th happened in May 20th. And people in Tallahassee don't know that, and they celebrate Juneteenth because of the popularity that it gained over the years. And so I'm with you on that. But it leads me back to what we put a pin in earlier, the FBI's involvement and Karenga's association with the FBI, and not to bring Juneteenth into this conversation, but Juneteenth was an example of how we just celebrate the holidays for it's just a celebration. There's nothing real about it. But moving on to FBI involvement, now we're bringing Kwanzaa back in it by itself. So go ahead and get back in the kitchen and tell us, and get about what you was talking about earlier about Karenga's FBI involvement and its impact on your perception, but also you getting at how we should be looking at Kwanzaa because of the FBI connections.
Well, you got to think about it for a second. You know, nothing convened or created by your enemy will ever benefit you.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying? And then when people are willing to excuse it, well, yeah, he was an agent, but we're going to excuse it. Well, he tortured black women, but we're going to excuse it. And we're going to look past the damage that these agents caused. You know what I'm saying? There was a time when black people were actually making some real progress towards creating a national identity. And they allowed for the infiltration of the FBI and all these other alphabet organizations, government entities, and local and state police forces to come in, because the FBI was actually training local police forces at that particular time, their tactics. You know, the New York,
Right.
the NYPD played just as big a role as the FBI in killing Malcolm X. So when you look at how all those things deterred and created a condition for black people to not be self-sufficient, for black people to, to consistently fall and become the cross eyes of the Nixon's war on drugs. You look at how it affected and just you look at the hopelessness of the black community. A lot of that stuff was rooted in the agent work that went on back then and the agent work that's going on now. And go ahead.
In the video that was played, you saw the pop-ups of those newspaper clippings.
Mm-hmm.
So I found, and this link is going to be in the bio, but I found this is from the Ann Arbor District Library. So these news articles are in the the Ann Arbor District Library, and then library, let me say it right, library. And they're talking about how the FBI attacked the Black Panther Party. And within this, they are mentioning the connections with or the interactions between us and the Black Panther Party and how it led to the killings of Bunchy Carter and Huggins. And so, but just want to let people know that the link for that will be in the description. So,
and here's the thing too, right? Because Patrick but Patrick actually says this a lot. We can't look at the individuals, like with respect for the brothers that got killed out there in California. But we can't just make it about them. We can't just make it about Karenga himself, even though we're talking about him. We have to talk about the agency that makes this possible.
That's why that article is relevant, because that article goes into how, like I said earlier, how those interact, how the beef between us and the Black Panthers led to further FBI raids of the Black Panther Party headquarters across the country. So you're right; it's a bigger picture for that.
Yeah, because you look at the tactics the FBI used; it didn't change. They used the same poison pen letters for the Nation of Islam and Malcolm X. They used the same poison. They used the same things. You can go back as far as Garvey and W.E.B. Du Bois and how they infiltrated those, debates. You can go back as far as, in fact, prior to the FBI, I mean, you can just go back to the slave codes. I mean, all these different things were utilized to infiltrate and destroy any possibility of Black people becoming their own source of resources, their own source of power. And because we have all these different things, all they did was take all these things. You can go back to Willie Lynch, in 1712. Was it 1812? 1712. You can go way back then. And you think about all the different tactics that have been put in place. It's sort of the pathology of how they can separate and divide Black people to the point where being a traitor to your community means nothing, because we don't have a culture strong enough to fight that. We used to have these conversations internally when we talked about, if you build a strong enough culture, the amount of infiltration won't matter, because you'll be able to, the culture will be strong enough to fight that. Let's look at the opposite end of that. Look at how many Black people say they're going to join the police force because they want to be part of the change. They're going to go on the inside and they're going to change it from the inside. And then they go in and become part of the same abusive culture that terrorizes their own community. Look at how that, because they say, what's the whole saying? When you dance with the devil doesn't change, the devil changes you. And that's what too many of us don't get, is that our culture is not strong enough. We don't want it. Every time you turn around, oh, we're not a monolith. Really? Because our enemy attacks us the same, no matter what you identify with. You want to be a Moor? They don't give a damn. You want to be a Hebrew Israelite? They don't give a damn. You want to be Nubian? They don't give a damn. You want to be a Christian, Muslim, whatever you want to be? They don't give a damn. They come to every single part, every single portion of our community. Democrat, Republican, Independent. It doesn't matter. Because we still operate the same, and we're predictable, and they understand where the weakest links are. And the weakest links exist because we don't have a culture strong enough to withstand it. Marimba Ani, Mama Marimba Ani stated, if you have a culture, it becomes your immune system.
Yeah.
Our immune system is weak.
Yeah.
Our immune system is full-blown AIDS at this particular point. You know what I'm saying? And I land my plane.
I'm gonna have to bleep that, but we get you. That's all good. But but to further that though, Ron Karenga went to prison for a year for the torturing or the alleged torturing of the women. When he got out, he became a professor at San Diego State, and he also went on to become the head of the Black Studies program and introducing Afrocentrism and things at the university. So one does have to ask a question, because
Mighty Ascension.
I found this document, and I'm not saying this is a real document. This is from governmentaddict.org, and this is saying the Federal Bureau of Investigation monograph. And in this, it is documenting Ron Karenga as a threat to the United States. But one has to ask the question though, if a man was such a threat to the United States at that time, why is he still alive? And two, how does a man who's such a threat go from being convicted of torturing women and spending time in prison to coming out and becoming a professor and head of a Black Studies department at a major university? How does that happen?
And I think with good deductive reason, we can understand this. I ain't gonna say like understand how this happens. I mean, you think about this for a second, right? And it's funny because William Pepper wrote a series of books detailing the events that led up to the deleting of Dr. Martin Luther King. And one of the things he identified, which I didn't realize, was how many intelligence agencies were working in collusion, separately and in collusion, to end that man's life. And when you think about that, and you think about all the state sanctioned and police sanctioned hits that took place during that time, why did this man ascend if he's an enemy of the state? How did he ascend, to those positions right out of jail?
That's what I'm saying.
You know what I'm saying? Right out of jail. You went to jail. You were convicted, right?
Well, let's put it like this. If we was in the streets, say the three of us, we was in the streets doing stuff, right? And we all went to prison for doing our street stuff. We're all doing the same thing. We all get 10 years. You all spend 10 years. I spend 1. Pat, what's your next thought?
Oh, you snitch. You working. You know what I'm saying? You working with the popes.
I mean, so street folk can put that together. I'm just saying the academia can put that together too, though. They're supposed to be degreed, right?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Because like going to school, and we saying is like all three of us are educated. I'm currently getting a new dose of indoctrination.
Yeah, you finna be a real white man now.
Yeah, absolutely. All my life I had to fight. but I think
Please.
I think one of the academia don't I'm definitely they don't think like normal people, and I think that's because thinking like a normal person will get you failing out of school. So you learn to think different. 2 plus 2 don't equal 4 to an academic. 2 plus 2 equals some number greater than
67,000.
yeah, like it equals some option in between these two ranges, greater than this one, but larger than this one. See, there's no absolute there. It could be any of these superpositions. So, it's a wonderful way of being able to articulate a bunch of nothing. But in any case, I think one of the biggest things that, like, I just go back to intellectual laziness. Like, I'm gonna bring the conversation all the way back to like, why do we celebrate Kwanzaa? Go ahead.
So, well, I want to ask this: are you talking about intellectual laziness across the board for Black people, or intellectual laziness for the people who are in the know of the origins of Kwanzaa?
I'm talking about all the way around. Because the wonderful thing about intellectual laziness is it's like real laziness. It manifests itself in several different ways, several different places for several different people. You know what I'm saying? Like, your lazy ain't my lazy, but they have the same result.
Right. But I'm asking for people like myself who, like I said, I've heard rumors when I was younger about Karenga being involved with the FBI and not necessarily really knowing about the background of
So I think, and when I'm talking about intellectual laziness, I'm talking about from the standpoint of really I'm looking at what is supposed to be the thought leaders. I don't
That's what I'm getting at. So people can't get an understanding what you're talking about.
Yeah. I'm talking really about the people that are supposed to be the thought leaders, or the people that are aspiring to be thought leaders. If you are one of these people and you are refusing to engage in thought, you're intellectually lazy. The question has to become, who wants to do the hard work required to verify holidays? You know what I'm saying? To verify persons that need to be recognized. And who wants to do the hard work required to actually create meaningful holidays and to identify people that deserve to be recognized and celebrated? And even beyond that, like when it comes to the activists, because those are largely going to be the thought leaders and the advocates that are doing that work. Who are the activists that are willing to put it all on the line to create something worth celebrating? You know what I'm saying? Like, and that doesn't mean the pageantry, because a celebration, recognition, a celebration, something that traditions, all these things, they either need to be based in survival that we want to remember because of historical lessons, cultural lessons, things of that nature, or they need to be centered in a significant event. That means like you put it on the line and did something to make a difference for your people. Like you went out there and actually did something in the real world, or even just making an effort. We could even celebrate the people that just put forth legitimate effort. Like they had integrity, they had honor, they strove for it all their life.
Well, yeah.
But they didn't get whatever break or whatever was there. Like that's an easy thing to recognize and celebrate, but then it becomes a matter of doing the work necessary to structure an event based in that culture and that history around those people. Who's doing that?
Well, now see, well, yeah. So, all right. Now you know better, because you asking people to do something that you know we ain't capable of doing at this point in time in history with the programming that we have, Patrick. So you over there being logical and stuff.
You're right. You know and before
saying?
People say anything, yes, we have tried to do that. But go ahead. Yeah, you're right.
But because as I'm listening to you say that, I'm like, I hear you, but man, I'm watching an interview on YouTube where the lady is advocating for women to separate, specifically black women to separate from black men.
Mhm.
And people agree with it.
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm also watching videos of men just doing all the dumbest stuff I can see them doing.
Mhm. Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
our like our people are in a bad place. Like
Mhm.
black,
We
Mhm.
speak both.
yeah, it's a lot of black men who not gonna make it, and it's a lot of black women who not gonna make it. Like we don't we're every day we're more and more buying into the narrative of we don't like each other and expressing that. We are so far from the and what's crazy though is Kwanzaa just passed. Look how black people were behaving during Kwanzaa. Kwanzaa literally just passed. And look how we were behaving during Kwanzaa, not applying the principles. So we are so far from reality to even be able to, if Ron Karenga didn't have the FBI connections and he still gave us Kwanzaa, we would still be behaving the way we behave now. Kwanzaa would still just be an observance, and we would get no real growth from it because of the programming that we have and how deep we into it. Like my man Sam Carter say, the only way to get out of a ditch is first you got to stop digging. We can't stop digging. We can't stop digging. So here
Can't
we are.
won't stop.
Here we are in this hole, stuck trying to get out. And yeah, we see Kwanzaa, but we ain't using it.
Take that. Take that.
We ain't even using the principles. And you know, it would definitely help. But like I said, knowing the connections that Kwanzaa has to Karenga, knowing Karenga's past, now for me looking forward, I can't look at Kwanzaa the same. The way I looked at Kwanzaa before preparing for this show and how I look at Kwanzaa now that I have new information is different. And you know, you should always be open cup, ready to be filled with new information and have your perspective change. Like I said, Kwanzaa has never been a big deal. Now,
No, it ain't.
now it's. I know for me, it's going to be even more. It's lost a lot of the significance that it's had, even though it already hasn't necessarily been a big deal within the communities. But it's just like you said, if we stand on principle, if we're looking at the like Judeg Joe Bworn said, the apple don't fall far from the tree unless the tree on the hill, and I don't think this tree on the hill.
Mm-mm.
Nah, trees in the valley where the rest of the community is.
Mhm. Mhm.
And well, you know, I think sometimes too we have to acknowledge that we do have an active enemy, and this
Yeah.
active enemy doesn't even have to be present because the program is on autopilot, and then the algorithm is on autopilot, and the algorithm is programmed to make sure we stay here, and so and people think that you can get rewarded for this. So the community is out the door. When I listen to people, I pay real close attention to how they see themselves in the world and how they see things around them in the world. And when I look at other groups of people, and I often say this, man, I was in one of the things when I was searching, trying to figure out, like when I got the bug of like, okay, let me dip into this consciousness piece that people talking about. You know, the first few groups I got into were sort of diverse, but some of the groups I got into were more white than anything else. And so in those groups, they were talking about things like patriotism, nation building, things of that nature. They were talking about survival skills and they were talking about working together. They were talking about things they would do collectively to organize in the community and so forth. When I went and jumped into black conscious spaces, it was like the black woman is God. It was like, you know what I'm saying, black men love sleeping with white women. It was, you know, it was some of the most rudimentary, petty shit that you could think of. And then that was considered sort of like these were the people who are identified as thought leaders. because yeah, the conscious spaces were small, but a lot of their rhetoric was reaching places that were beyond their boundaries. And so when you see that and you see the level of sophistication versus the simplicity of things we talked about, it was like night and day. And so when you would try to have those conversations in those black conscious spaces, you would get ridiculed. You know what I mean? Don't be bringing that white shit up in here. Oh, it's white to be organized. It's white to tell you you need to be out there and to be prepared for, in case some lunatic comes into your community and starts spraying it up. Is white to be, to not pay attention to the global climate of the world. You know what I'm saying? So when you start thinking about it in the lack of maturity, we listen, man. We were purposely placed in arrested development in this country.
Of course.
Globally speaking, we were purposely put in a place where we need a nanny state to survive. We were purposely put in a place where there would always have to be caretakers for us because we're not the ones responsible for our own survival. This is why they can confidently say by the year 2050, actually by the year 2035, black people in America will be null and void. Actually, they're saying it now.
For the most part.
Yeah. But you talking about 2035, they're literally talking about you won't see us nowhere. And we'll be like the shanty towns of the apartheid South Africa, where we'll be outside and we'll need passes just to walk past specific zones to get closer to the center of the cities. We will literally be the Hunger Games, where we'll be District 12 or District 6 or some shit like that. And you can talk to black people now.
Your economic level will really matter.
Right. Well, but you ask them, and this is how you know, because families are the basis of nation building. Family. But you ask people why that is, they can't tell you. And so now you ask people, well, what's your goals? Well, my goal is to, get 6 figures, or I want to be married to somebody that has 6 figures so he could retire me. And I'm like, that's not the whole purpose of building a family. The purpose of building a family is to push your people forward.
Nation building.
Nation building, push your people forward. Teach people that they have a communal responsibility to other people in the community. That you can't just have my goals for, life goals and relationship goals is fucking traveling. It irks me when I see people talk like that, especially when you hopping on these $3 airlines and skipping out on bills.
Yeah.
You're not traveling. You're a vagabond. So, you know what I'm saying? I see people talk this delusional lifestyle that they've never lived. So you can tell they've never lived because the things they describe, the people who have that money don't live like that. You know what I'm saying? And because we're strapped in that place, we can't see the world for the reality that we live in.
Yeah.
And so a Juneteenth, I'm not gonna pick on Juneteenth today. A Kwanzaa is the purpose for celebration and jubilee, but that's it.
So, as you were talking, you made me think. And we could possibly go back to the 1970s. Integrity and black leadership has not been in alignment, seems like, since the 1970s.
Before that,
but I'm just talking about like really picking up though, right?
No, you cooking. My bad. I didn't mean to interrupt the preparation. You cooking.
See, now I gotta use the microwave. Damn it. but it seems though like leaders or people who are elevated to positions of leadership, integrity has been an issue. And we have to think about that because we went from a period to where people who were leaders were seen as a threat and taken out to people who were leaders who were voiced as a threat. Their lives kept getting better.
Well, but like, and that's a great point. and it's one that I think about all the time because it begs us to think about the reality of the situation. Integrity is a nice word that nobody likes, but everybody likes to claim. You know what I'm saying? Like, because you think about what comes with having integrity.
Responsibility.
Right. You know, being with like in the Air Force, when I was doing my bid, you know, I did an 8-year bid. They used to always say integrity is doing the right thing when nobody's looking, right? And they drilled that into us. It don't matter if nobody's around. You do the right thing because you never know who's around. And it started like in basic training. Like sometimes the TIs will hide out to see what you would do in a situation they purposely set up. And if you did the right thing, you didn't even realize your reward was you get to go about your day. Because if you did the wrong thing, the situation was totally different. And they would descend upon you like something biblical, right? But it drove the point home in terms of, and it wasn't just about doing it, because doing the right thing when nobody's looking became being honest all the time.
Yep.
Even if it meant telling somebody something they didn't want to hear. Even if it meant doing something that nobody else wanted to do, because you're doing the right thing all the time. That motherfucker is somebody that nobody wants to be around, because everybody want to do dirt and feel safe.
Yep.
Everybody want to feel like they can come up off of like somebody with integrity. You knowing him don't mean that him coming up means you come up too. Don't nobody want to be with somebody like that motherfucker over there, man. He just made $3 million last year. I'm still flipping burgers at McDonald's. You missed the fact that he gave you 8 opportunities to make money with him, but you actually had to do something for it, but you couldn't do it. So that's why you still flipping burgers. He take your phone calls, but he don't loan you no money. He ain't got no more opportunities for you. Don't nobody want to be around that person. Everybody want to be around the sweet talker. And what's the great thing about being, you just tell people whatever they want to hear. Well, that can't, by definition, be somebody with integrity and honesty. If everybody around you loves you and feels good about what you say all the fucking time, I got questions about what you're saying.
Yeah.
Well, you know, that's a great point. Because people want to be around people that they got dirt on. You know, because if you got dirt on me and I got dirt on you, then it's a weird way of keeping each other honest. It's like honor amongst thieves, but a thief is not an honorable thing. It's not an honorable position to hold. Not honorable. You know, liars and thieves go hand in hand. So it speaks to, because integrity is also strength too, because you have to have the strength to do the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you got to be honorable, and you have to, you know. So the leaders of the past had dignity. You know what I'm saying? They moved in a way that was dignified, and they understood. You know, one of the things I appreciate about Malcolm X was how many times the FBI tried to turn him. One of the things I appreciate about Coretta Scott King is that how she honored her husband when they tried to sully his name, even though modern women try to sully his name to this day. The things that he was accused of, but was never proven. So, you know, that's integrity. That's integrity. And so it's a word people like to say. It's kind of like the word, like people like to say, leave your ego at the door, and they pull up with kids on the table. You know?
Yeah.
We got a lot of them little cute phrases that sound good, but when you look at it, don't nobody really like that shit.
You mean like the, well, not in that
Pat,
same
don't
vein
be policing us, Pat. Don't be policing us.
But
right.
But not in the same vein of don't nobody like that shit, but in the same vein of treating it as a cute phrase. the principles of Kwanzaa, we treat them as cute phrases.
Yep.
That's why, that was one of the reasons why we got nothing from it. As a whole, we got nothing. We never got anything from Kwanzaa because we treat the principles as cute phrases. Now,
Yeah, we want to live the soft life.
right, right,
Right.
right. But now though, with new information, I am saying moving forward, I don't see Kwanzaa the same. There was already something that it seemed like Kwanzaa was a filler for a lot of people, you know, or it was an opportunity for them to feel black before Black History Month.
No, it is, yeah.
So, you know, it really got me looking at it different, and it really got me looking at Karenga different and all these things here because there's documentation about the unaliving of the Black Panthers. There's documentation of the FBI involvement with us. There's documentation of him going to prison and coming out. All these things, stuff that just don't line up. The stuff that line all the way up, stuff that just don't line up. So looking at all that different, but if you continue to celebrate Kwanzaa, it is what it is. It is what it is. Just don't actually apply the principles. we're still applying these principles as we live, but just actually apply the principles. You know, it is what it is. But we just wanted to give y'all our thoughts, and I wanted to get a breakdown on it and get more understanding of Kwanzaa and the story behind it and its connection with the FBI, especially with Ron Karenga. So here we are. We learned something new. And this pursuit definitely learned something new. So make sure you use the information accordingly. Before we go, I do want to give a shout out to a new patron, Miss Macy G. Thank you for becoming a new patron. Welcome to the On the Shoulders of Giants Patreon family. I appreciate you. And, you know, if you want to support me on Patreon, it's patreon.com/OT. That link is in the description along with all the other links to support me. And let's continue doing what we're doing. You know, FetLifeStation.com, 7 p.m. Make sure you tune in. Don't miss it. Pat, you keep doing what you're doing. Hey, man, we love you all.
Amazon.com, I guess. I have
Oh, yeah. But get his book. I put the link to Pat's book, The Chasm, in the description as well. But y'all continue to support On the Shoulders of Giants. We're on our way to 100,000 and more. Let's push it. Let's push it. Let's push it. Let's have a great 2024. Let's make 2024 for On the Shoulders of Giants 10 times better than 2023 was. So let's do it. I love you all. Make sure y'all catch the next video.